Hi everybody, in this next video we're going to continue working with the same Excel file, but talk about different kinds of financial functions and situations that we're going to consider. So I'm here on the income statement page, and we're going to start by exploring linear and also growth trends. So what we're going to do here is sort of estimate what we think our sales would be for years 1 through 5. So we're going to start by estimating that our year 1 sales would be $1 million. And our year 5 sales would be $2.5 million. Now, of course, I'm not just going to pull these numbers out of anywhere. I would do some thorough research and really be as realistic as possible with what I think this company is going to earn in year 1 and by year 5. And we're talking about our sales here, right? So how much we're bringing in from sales for this particular company. Now, there's two ways that we could fill in the values here. So we're going to use Excel to help us. And this first way we're going to use is based on linear trend. So a linear trend is when you have the same change every single year. If you think back to your algebra class and you think a line, right, the slope is the same no matter which points that you pick. And that's what we're seeing here. Slope and average rate of change are the same thing. So in a linear trend, we're seeing the same exact change in value every single year. So we can have Excel help us. And what we're going to do is we enter our beginning and ending values. Again, what we think, of course, based on research, we expect to happen. And then we select the whole range. So I'm selecting from B8 to F8 here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm on the home key. I'm going to go over to edit. And then I see this fill option. And I want to hit fill series. And you're going to select what kind of series you want to fill. Now, I'm going to keep it on rows because I'm filling in along a row here. And I am going to leave it on linear. So my linear is going to be, again, the same exact value change. In this case, we're doing it every single year or for whatever period you're talking about. I'm going to trend here so that it fills in the trend in between and hit OK. And then it fills in what we believe would be our sales in years 2, 3, and 4. And these are all the exact same difference. So for instance, if I took year 5 and subtracted year 4, we see the change is 375,000. If I take year 4 and subtract year 3, again, we still get 375,000. That same exact dollar change every single year. So this is a linear trend. Now, the other thing that we could do instead is what's called a growth trend. So I'm going to go ahead and delete years 2 through 4 for a second. I'm just going to go ahead and clear those cells. I'm going to select cell B8 through F8 again, and I'm going to go back up to in series. And this time I'm going to click growth. Now, what happens with a growth trend is that you have the same change every year, but it's not by a value, it's by a percent. So our sales are increasing by the same percentage every single year, which does not necessarily mean the same dollar amount. In mathematics, we talk about this as an exponential growth instead. So the first one was linear, and here they're using growth to mean exponential growth. So you're getting that same sort of multiplier each time. I'm going to click trend again. I click trend anytime I'm trying to fill in between two values. This is called interpolation. So we're going in between. And again, it will fill in those values here. Now, how do you know what your actual percentage of change is? You could divide the two cells. So I could take year 5 and divide it by year 4. Ooh, let's try that again. All right, let's reformat. I think my formatting is causing me an issue here. Let's say general. All right, that looks better. I didn't think I divided wrong. So my cell was just formatted incorrectly. So I'm going to fix this. And then see this 2574 here? That is your percent. So the growth percent here that we're seeing is 25.74. Decimal places over because percents are per 100. So you move it 2 decimal places to get that, that change. And it would be the same one for each combination of years. If I did 4 divided by year 3, and I reformat my cell, let's see. Then again, I see that same percentage change here. Oh man, I gotta change all my formatting. But my percent change is 25.74%. So your same percentage change each year instead. But obviously it's not the same dollar amount change, right? We're getting various dollar amounts, but still a consistent change here. So this is our growth trend instead. And again, it's called interpolating when you go in between two values. So you're starting and your ending value, and you're trying to fill in what's in the middle. Is what we're doing here. So let's leave in the growth change. So let's say, you know, we've done some research and we feel that this would best how our sales would probably grow. It's not linear. It would be by a percentage each year. So let's go ahead and leave that in. And let's go ahead and fill in some additional cells. So again, we've done some research and perhaps we plan to spend about 25% of our gross sales there on marketing. Cost of sales and marketing. Let's do the cost of research and development. Let's say we estimate that is going to be 15. So again, you would do some research about how much do you think you're going to spend of the amount of money coming in on each of these departments, right? And then we can incorporate those percentages here. So my first row is cost of sales and marketing, and the next is research and development, so R&D. And what I'm going to do is just go ahead and multiply. So I'm going to take my B8 here and I'm going to multiply it by my percent for the cost of sales. So that is F3. And then here I'm going to do the same thing, take my B8 and I'm going to multiply it by my percent for research and development. So that is F4. Now, notice that I am fixing my F4 and my F3 because I am going to drag these across and copy them. And I don't want them to change. So I can figure out years 2 through 5 just by copying that same formula across. And again, I do always recommend that you kind of just click it's changing as you would expect it to change. So then our gross profit is going to be B8 minus our 2 costs. So the cost of sales and marketing plus the cost of research and development. And again, I can also drag that across. So for our projected gross profit here in year 1, we're estimating 600,000 again income. And then for year 5, we're looking at 1.5 million. We haven't taken into account all of our expenses yet, though. So we've done just basic expenses. So thinking about our sales and then the expenses of marketing and research and development, right? So there are other expenses that come into play, which you do see down below. So let's fill some of those in too. All right, so for year 1, we have expenses such as payroll, utilities, licensing, occupancy costs if you rent space and things like that, insurance, and other miscellaneous expenses. So Excel wants us to fill these in, or your book does. So the first one is 430,000. The next one was 60,000, 25,000. 50,000, 25,000, and then 15,000 in miscellaneous expenses. And then the total general expenses, obviously, we're going to go ahead and just add these up. All right, so now I'd like to fill in years 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm not going to assume my expenses will stay the same though, right? If you think about our projections for the gross profit, they are increasing. So if our profits are increasing, I'm going to guess that other things are going to change too, right? We may have to spend higher number on salary, hire more people because we're selling more product. I need more space. Maybe something else will decrease. I don't know, something becomes more efficient. So things are going to change. And we want to do what's called extrapolate what we think the year 2, 3, 4, and 5 costs would be. So interpolating is to go inside to endpoints. When we extrapolate, we go beyond the data. You want to be careful here and do realize that, again, these are all estimations, right? we hopefully they're good estimations, but they are not guaranteed. So as well, when we extrapolate, we're trying to project what we think would happen, but we really don't know. It's a good idea to not project too far as well. I wouldn't want to go 20 years into the company because so much could change in 20 years. So we're going to do the first 5 years here. All right, so I'm going to select my range B14, 14, because I'm going to go ahead and extrapolate here. I'm going to do the same process, go back to home, go back to my fill feature and to series. Now let's see, this case, we're going to stick with the growth. So let's change to growth. So it's an exponential change here. We're going to stick with that for right now, assuming that that's the best fit for our company. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put in the step value, and we're going to use 1.10. So what that means is that 0.10 is that these will change by an increase of 10%, basically, is what we're saying here. So we're going to use 1.10 in that value there. So that's our growth rate is 10%. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Notice I'm not checking off trend this time. We're going to use the steps, and it will fill in, and it will increase it by a growth rate of 10% for each. Now, maybe I don't think that utilities, licensing, and occupancy costs and insurance, et cetera, will be as high of a growth rate. Maybe I think they're only going to be 5%. So for the next group, I'm going to have them grow all the same way. So I'm going to select the whole group here, not my totals though. I'm going to go to series. I'm going to stick with growth. And this time I'm going to use 5%. Now it's in decimal form here. So 5% is 0.05. So use 1.05. That one out front, make sure the data is growing because it's technically 105% that we're doing here. So we're going to hit OK, and those will all get filled in appropriately. As a side note here, if you think something would decrease, what you're going to use instead is a value that is less than 1. So you'd use a value between 0 and 1. So for instance, if I use 0.90, that means I think I'm decreasing by 10%, right? Because 100 minus 90 is 10. If I use 0.80, I think something is decreasing by 20%. So you don't actually use negatives there for that growth trend. You would use a value between 0 and 1 because that would have the numbers decreasing. All right, and let's also copy over our total expenses. And see if these are copying the right way. Let's see, I think I have an error somewhere. I do. See my error right here? You guys see it? I wrote 150,000 for miscellaneous expenses. Let's make that 15,000. And I'm going to have to change and fix this bottom number here. So if I make a mistake, I just go in and fix it. But notice that my series didn't update, right? Because it was based off the original values. I have to go ahead and just fix that. That looks much better. And now I have the final answer. As I'm going through too, I've already done this at home and I have the book with me. So I am checking to make sure I don't have errors in my videos, or at least I don't not catch any errors in my videos. So that would be our expenses and looking at how to do interpolation and extrapolation there.